That's a subwoofer project, and I interrupt this pointless subwoofer project to bring myself an organization of my crap project. I bought these carts, bought 2 carts like that, and I want to use them to stack all these fasteners. Not only all these fasteners, but a lot of other fasteners that are located elsewhere. Well, that about does it. There are 3 empty trays. I'll just feel out how this goes. So, kind of the point of actually making this video is that the other videos I saw online about making sheet metal boxes involved using a pan brake, which is a really nice tool. I don't have one of those, and most people don't have one of those. What I used was a $160 Harbor Freight sheet metal brake, and I used 2 Harbor Freight hand brakes, hand seamers. And Harbor Freight does distribute a double cut shear, but I use a Milwaukee one that's cordless, and it's a lot more convenient to use. So double cut shears, 2 hand shears, both made in the USA. They're remarkably cheap. It's like $32 on Amazon. I forget the brand name, but they're pretty decent. This is a 72,000 pound per square inch yield strength alloy of cheap stainless steel. It's not easy to cut. It's not easy to work with. I would recommend a thicker aluminum because this stuff will slice your hands up if you're not careful. But long story short, these scrap metal bins, because I used scrap metal for my first bins to use up all the scrap that I had sitting around, took 15 to 20 minutes each, and then I got the other bins that weren't scrap metal down to about 8 minutes each by using a template. It turned out the template wasn't all that important, but if you want your boxes to look perfect, then yeah, you should trace a template onto a piece of scrap and then fold that over. So to get it under the 8-minute mark, I theorized that you'd need a different alloy that's easier to drill through, so like regular steel or aluminum, and then an alloy also that can be spot welded, maybe just like regular steel, or if galvanized, use it in a ventilated area so that the vaporized zinc isn't breathed in by you. Spot welding is probably the quickest way to go. And then stainless has like a 10-degree spring back. It depends on the alloy, but spring back's a pain in the butt. So, yeah. The reason I used the stainless instead of the aluminum that you saw sitting at the beginning of the video, which would have been much easier to build boxes out of, is because this is prettier, and I have a YouTube channel, and I'm hoping to eventually sell stainless steel roofing. I actually want to go into business doing that, so I figured I'd need like a visually more appealing, or less unappealing, I suppose, garage, if I'm going to be filming out of the garage. So that's why I chose the shiny stuff. Okay, I guess now it's time to try to go into the details. Hopefully the footage makes it easy to do so. So there's 2 kind of primary styles of bins you could build. One is a multi-piece bin, and another is a single-piece bin. This is footage of the end caps from a multi-piece bin that require multiple fold-in tabs. In this case, I'm making tabs that are way too long, and it wastes material, and it's a pain in the butt because when the tabs are really long, then they extend out, and you want them to be flush with each other, but it's really hard to get them to be flush with each other. You have to rivet them down and bend them perfectly to make it flush with the box. In this case, since I'm using hand slicer metal, it's really hard and really thin. The long portion of the bin, the main portion, the edges, like the top edges, I folded them over. It's called a hem, and I can kind of insert these 1/4 inch, not as tall as the main box end caps. I can insert those tabs into the hems. It's kind of convenient. It saves me 1 rivet per side, so it saves me 1 rivet per leg that's inserting, because I don't have to rivet off the top, because it's held in adequately so that it looks presentable. Because the strength is already adequate with just some basic riveting. But you want it to be flush with each other. Unless you don't mind big old gaps in your bins, but stuff tends to fall out of big gaps. That's bad. So if you're storing stuff in your bins, Now because I'm using a dull drill bit, it's hard to drill through, and because the tabs are so long, like the metal doesn't support itself very well, and it wants to like bend inward as I drill, so it's hard to drill by hand. So if you're going to make tabs, whether or not you're using a multiple piece bin style or a single piece bin style, I recommend the tabs be like 3/4 of an inch or less. And it totally depends on the thickness of metal you're using. If it's thicker metal, then it'll be easier for your little drill to like push through the metal without like bending the existing metal inward. It's kind of tough for me to describe. It's tough for me to speak in general, but it's tough to describe without showing you. Now, in one of the bins, I made a divider, and I'm strength testing the divider. It's only held on with 2 rivets on the top, and with like frictional pressure on the bottom. I just like hammered it into place, and it basically, the divider looks like an end cap.
It's strong enough,
and it can. That was 200 pounds.
I wouldn't use that as a stepping platform, especially in that orientation. But I think it should easily work stepping platform.
They will definitely hold fasteners, and they will keep them in 2 different compartments. One advantage to using a rolly cart for your fasteners is you can actually sweep the dust that accumulates over the years without much problem. Got to plan out what kind of sizes I need for the boxes I need. I did that, and I cut the main chunks off of the coil. Now I'm measuring and marking like each individual box on here, and I'm taking it into the process. There are 2 styles of boxes that I'm building during this box run. I know you're not going to have this tool. This just makes me able to slice long strips, so it saves maybe a few minutes, not a few minutes per box, but saves a few minutes, and it makes my cut edges like not prickly and sharp like it would be if I had double cut shears or normal hand shears, because the cutting process works in a different way. Now in this clip, I am cutting the individual box metal and stacking them off to the right so that they're out of the way. And now I'm going to be making templates. The legs that I made in the template are too long, if you happen to notice that detail. I think I made them like 1 inch, and they should be less than 1 inch. Cutting out the template. You know, these long distance shots at night really don't do you much help. I'm going to go actually record some footage just to show you some important stuff. So these are the templates that I made, where you trace some of the edges to put lines on your material. Now these are not perfect. What I should have done is, like here, I should cut the line. If you want to actually have the end piece have like a line and then fold on the line at the lines that are marked here, you want to cut away that portion so that when you put your pen down, it actually marks on your piece, like continuing on where this line is. In this case, the fold would be like 1/8 of an inch out from where it should be. But let's just assume this is a cutout piece for a box that you're going to form. This part would get folded over and would reinforce that flange. It would be a ham that would protect your hand from getting sliced. You don't necessarily need to do that. This aluminum here, it will not slice your hands. You don't need to fold the tops of the boxes. I just built this out of scrap. This is, I think, my first sheet metal box ever. And I used this to save time so I didn't have to bend anything. These are those Midwest is the brand. These are the hand shears that I recommend.
You don't have to use pop rivets. You can use like self-drilling screws. You can use a lot of things. Again, the spot weld is going to be the fastest. Let's presume that this is the actual metal. It might be faster to use hand shears and cut up in here. And you want to cut just past. You want to cut just past your line, not to the line, so that there's like a deformation that happens around this corner, and it has to like not interfere with the other metal that's around it. The professionally made boxes, let's go to a professionally made box, huh? Okay. So this is a professionally made box. All the professionally made bins and boxes that I've seen have these hemmed edges. And I guess that's because it just costs too much to use metal that's so thick that you don't have to have a hemmed edge, and then they'd have to put like polish the edge to make it not sharp. So this one's got welded corners. You probably don't want to do that kind of work. And this one's just bent and hemmed. And they use a pan brake, and it looks really nice. They do a great job. So these tabs, these fold up and they fold in, and eventually they get like they mate with this surface. And then at the edge here, it might be right here. And if the bend like isn't a perfect 90 degrees, which technically it's not going to be, then there's going to be some sort of gap either up here, like on this edge, or over on this edge. So the way you minimize that gap is to just keep this shorter. Also, when you keep this shorter, like say only this much exists, then when you go to drill through this side and then ultimately through here, it's going to be trying to bend this tab inward more. But if it's trying to bend from here, it's going to have a really hard time like further bending that joint, and instead it's just going to drill through your metal, which is what you want. So it's a double whammy of benefits of having a shorter tab here. So definitely shorter than is shown right here.
The next clip assumes that you're using a template.
And this tab doesn't need to be like a perfect straight line unless you want it to be, but it's going to be located on the inside of the box. So you don't need to like draw a line along it. You can just like draw two dots. So if you have this template, you don't have to measure everything. Or if you have a better template, hopefully. Spend a little more time than I did making a good template. Maybe some trial and error. You can just like put a dot, a dot, a dot, a dot. So I wasted too much time tracing the lines, and I ruined my pens because it scrapes away the fibers when you run the pen along the metal. Another advantage of the one-piece bin is you aren't going to have fasteners on the bottom here. So if you care about like scraping up the surface of your shelves or whatever, then you would definitely want to go with the one-piece bin. This Harbor Freight sheet metal brake is pretty good. I put this down here because you either need to bolt it to the floor to keep it steady, or you need to like step on it on both edges, and that can get tiring over time. So I'll put this metal down there.
Roosters at every hour of the night. There we go. The straight edge, the triangle, and the angle feature on that straight edge is pretty useful for me. Recommend them. The metal is curved, so I'm using the long metal beam to hold down the metal so it's easier to trace. I'm just tracing the templates out. Starting to cut.
Okay. So I'm putting a bend into 3 tabs at once here. Got the sidewall. This is the hem at the top of the sidewall. It's not really supposed to hem like that, but it works. It's pretty awkward to make that hem in this Harbor Freight brake. Now, on this unit, I had neglected to do one thing properly, and that is to initially put a bend in the little end closures portions of the box. Because now the bend crease, when I go to bend it by hand, is going to be like really rounded. It's not the end of the world, but I consider it a defect. So another advantage to these short tabs is that the screw holes, or the rivet holes, put the rivets at the very end. So you can kind of use extra long rivets that aren't really designed for it, and it'll still hold. I mean, it's not the perfect grip range for the rivet, but it's not like it's super high strength needs here. These stainless rivets were just a hair over 1 cent each. That was a cool sound, right? Not really sure if there's anything more useful that I could put on this timeline with regard to building sheet metal boxes. If the lack of details and lack of step-by-step nature of this bothers you, please let me know. I can actually make a video for the express purpose of displaying like how to build a sheet metal box, if you'd like. When you bend up those end portions, it's a lot better to do it on a flat surface. So this footage here is just some like bonus footage of building a metal racking system. This is a wire raceway, an aluminum wire raceway. Supposedly they're used on cell phone towers. If you can find a scrap metal yard that will sell you their scrap metal, I think generally they'll sell you it for about $2 a pound for aluminum. So this thing was probably like $30. And I don't really have much of a use for it. So, just making some scrap metal shelves for these bins.
Well, I guess that marks the end of the video. If you have any questions or something, let me know. Bye.